It's the peak of the summer, and that means two things. One, it's time to try on your friend's sandals and appreciate how we're all different. And two, it's time to dive into AuDHD. We're coming to you live from a hot room to talk about what ADHD and autism look like in combination, why there's so little research behind it, hint, it's ableism, and how it feels to have both battling inside you. If you've always felt like you simultaneously have a rigid old woman and a small impulsive child living in your brain together and it's not going well, come join us for what will likely be an eye-opening look into this extra spicy and often contradictory combination of neurodivergences.
They said that we'd grow out of it. Well, the joke's on them, that's just our brains. We're eccentric, loud, and stubborn, and most of our clothing is covered in stains. It's not a deficit of attention, there's just too much to think about. So if executive dysfunction becomes a little too much, if you forgot why you came in this room, or you're hypersensitive to touch, then put on your seamless socks and come join our little flock. Bitches stimming together, we're weirds of a feather, weirds of a feather.
All right, are we ready to rock?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go. Welcome to Weirds of a Feather, an ADHD-Adjacent podcast. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm your host, Kristen.
And we have introduced the podcast. And
here we are.
Now we're here.
It's not a warm-up question. It's just a commentary.
Okay, it has to be real quick because we've got a lot to cover this episode.
I know. Sometimes, especially in the summer, when I come over in my stocking feet only.
Yeah.
I like to just temporarily try out you and Ian's flip-flops and just notice how different our feet feel.
Yeah.
Because, like, your flip-flops are like an imprint of your feet.
And my arches are so high.
They're the highest arches in the world.
Yep. It's a world record.
World record arches. And Ian, his feet are big.
Yeah.
They're just so big. There's so much of it.
There's so much foot. Just keeps going.
And sometimes it's nice to, like, sit back and appreciate and just be like, we are all different.
It's a really good conclusion that you've come to.
I hope you don't mind that. Sometimes I do that.
You play a little Goldilocks with our shoes?
Yeah.
I don't mind at all.
It's not that I'm preferring one over the other. It's just like Grace's feet are different, Ian's feet are different, and my feet are different.
Wow. 3 people. 3 different feet.
Yeah.
Well, 6 different feet.
6 different feet.
Only 3 of them are different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm fine with that. I didn't know that was something you did, but I approve.
It's one of my favorite pastimes.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I know that about you.
Yeah. I feel like I should share it now that it's summertime and it's the season of flip-flops.
Yeah. It's time to try on your friend's sandals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
All right.
That was a good warm-up commentary. Thank you for that. Goldilocks. Should we do some little accomplishments before we get into the meat of this episode? It is the meat. But not yet, because first we have little accomplishments.
All right.
Let's do that song.
Little
accomplishments, but big in our hearts. For some reason, I knew you were going to do that.
Damn it.
All right.
we do it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll probably leave that in. All right.
You would think I would get this down. I never do. Okay.
Nah, I don't really
ready.
think you'll ever get any of this down, which is what I'm here for. All right.
I'm ready. Little accomplishments, but big in our hearts.
There you go.
All right.
Second time's a charm.
I had to warm up.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't really get a warm-up question, so this is your warm-up.
Yeah. Grace.
Yeah.
What's your little accomplishment?
I cleaned out the goddamn fridge.
Oh, that's such a big accomplishment.
Right? Especially because we had not gone grocery shopping in probably like 3 weeks since past when we needed to.
Yeah.
We've just been like kind of scrapping and
living
scrounging.
off the land.
What?
Living off the land.
Yeah, we really have been. /
the land of your
quality
bare
shop.
cupboards.
Yes. And part of the problem, well, there are many problems to this problem, but part of it is that our fridge was packed full of like a bunch of different tuppies of leftovers that have gone bad. Oh, there were literally like 8 or 9 big glass Pyrex dishes of leftovers that had gone bad.
That's so much space.
Yeah, it took up the whole fridge. I'm like, we have a packed fridge, but there's nothing edible in here. And that was really holding me back from getting groceries. So I finally cleaned out all of those goddamn tuppies.
Yeah.
Threw them away. Took the trash out because it stunk.
Yep.
Put the tuppies to the dishwasher.
Are you doing that thing where you put the white trash bags into the purple trash bags? So you don't have to use so many city purple trash bags?
Yes.
Good.
I am. Because it's annoying. So I also got white trash bags.
There you go.
Because here in Portland, you have to buy your trash bags like through the city. You have to buy like city trash bags and the trash.
I think a lot of
trucks.
cities do that.
Do they? Because every other city around here does not. It's only Portland.
I think so.
Well, it's frustrating. And then if you have something stinky in that bag, then it's like, do you continue using that bag even though it's half full and you paid fucking $17 a bag? Just kidding. It's $17 for a whole bowl.
You put bags and bags and bags. And is it more wasteful? Yes.
Yes.
But we're on a budget.
Yeah. I need to do bags and bags. And also, like, I'm not single-handedly causing climate change. So, like, come at me, billionaires.
Yeah.
For my 2 extra trash bags I'm going to use. Anyway, I'm really proud of myself. The fridge was disgusting. And then once I cleaned it out, it was literally, like, almost empty. I was like, wow.
Nice.
All of that was garbage.
Ugh.
So, I'm pretty proud of myself.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. What did you do? What did you accomplish?
Last night, Christopher and I had a little accountability night.
Nice.
I did some Facebooking and did some emails and did some, Facebooking was more for fun. But,
well, you were responding to people in our Facebook group.
Yeah, some responses that I put off for far too long. And then did some research and all kinds of stuff. And then Christopher did his crochet. Because now that Grace has crocheted, we're all learning how to crochet. Everybody's crocheting.
I started a trend and now I don't want to do it anymore.
Really?
Yeah,
You're
kinda.
done?
No, I'm still doing it. But it's just one of those things, you know?
Yeah.
I told too many people. And now I'm like, all right, well, that was the fun of the hobby. Was telling people.
Yeah.
And showing them my sad little granny square.
Yeah.
But I'm still going.
You should. It's very relaxing. I did it last night.
You're just talking about how Christopher had a meltdown.
He definitely had a meltdown. He's got a lot of things going on, so I think it was like an accumulation.
And the crochet just pushed
him
him
over
the edge.
He literally sat there for 3 hours trying to figure out how to do the magic ring or whatever.
Loop.
One loop.
I gave up on that. Not even my mother-in-law Judy can remember how to do that, so that's how you know it's difficult.
YouTube video. I got it down, I think.
Do you?
Yeah. I got to watch a YouTube video again, but I think I have it down. But yeah, so I feel really bad because he tried really hard, and I knew he was getting more frustrated. But it's like there's so much, and so yeah, it was relaxing for me, not so much for him.
Yeah,
but
it can be relaxing.
It can be relaxing, but it was an accountability night, and I got some stuff done. And you know what? I went through my mail. Guess who got a check in the mail?
Yeah?
Yeah, from my escrow because I paid too much in taxes.
Whoa.
So I got like a $200 check.
See? That's why
I was like, shoot, I gotta go through my mail more often.
That's what I'm saying. Even though I don't follow my own advice, but sometimes there's money in there.
Yep.
So open your mail, everyone.
This is PSA to all you guys with a bathtub full of mail.
Yep.
Go through that mail. There might be money. Or coupons. Sometimes you get really nice coupons.
Yeah.
And that is like money that's worth its weight in gold.
I think I'd rather just have money, but yeah, coupons are also good, I guess.
But
all right.
We've got quite a bit to talk about.
Yes.
Today.
Get ready to hear me talk.
Yep. I'm ready.
Unlike normally where I'm just like a quiet little guy in the corner.
Yeah, you're usually like the shy, reserved.
Yeah, I'm like,
holding back your opinions.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have strong opinions on that, so I probably shouldn't speak up. That's so me.
That's so you.
I never have an opinion about anything. But today I have a very strong opinion about this topic because we are covering AuDHD.
Woo, woo, woo.
Which, remember, is autism plus ADHD.
And
so
we already have like a little bit about it, right?
Yep. You can go, you mean the first episode we did?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go back and listen to part 1 on autism, where we kind of just do like a rundown
of the basics of autism and kind of talk about like diagnosis and the DSM definition and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to be getting a little bit more into what the combination of autism plus ADHD looks like, because AuDHD can look so different from just ADHD or just autism. And so it's really kind of difficult.
It's an entity in itself.
Yeah, it's its own like third category. And so it can be confusing. It can be really hard to suss out like which is which, if you have both, if you just have one. So we're hoping that this episode will start to kind of help you figure it out for yourself, and also help you start to like identify those things in us, which I'm hoping will in return help you understand yourself and others more. Sometimes I'm like, do we talk about ourselves way too much on this podcast? But then I'm like, that's kind of the whole premise, is that neurodivergent people like hearing personal examples that they can relate to.
Yeah.
And if you just wanted to like get the research facts, you would just listen to a different podcast.
Right. I feel like it makes it more specific.
Yeah. And I really benefit from hearing people's personal examples. It helps me understand the behavior more, as opposed to just like a textbook definition of what is happening.
It's too generic, too vague.
So I'm hoping by hearing us talk about how we experience AuDHD, that will just kind of like get the gears turning of like, it's not just a list of descriptors. It's also like, this is how it plays out in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got anything else, or should we just like jump right in?
I think we should jump in.
Let's
get wet.
Plug our noses and jump right in and get so wet.
Oh, no.
No, I regret it. Get into the wet.
Get into the wet. Yeah, that's much better.
I
hated that.
Yeah.
For both of us.
Yeah,
I hated hearing that, and I hate that came out of your mouth. But
same. Forget you heard that.
Yeah.
Pretend I didn't.
Let's
get into the wet.
Yes.
All right. So the main resource we are using today, it comes from embraceautism.com.
Woo woo.
You big fan?
Well,
actually, you are.
I am a big fan.
You were telling me what a great resource
I was. It's such a good, like, well-designed website. It's very clear. There are appropriate icons, and it's organized very well. And there's not only is there a lot of good information, but it's just organized in a very like aesthetically pleasing way. It's a bunch of blues, like lighter blues and darker blues. And it just, it's nice to look at. There's nothing worse than a poorly designed website. It makes me not want to participate in that website.
Especially when you're going there as an ADHD or autistic person, like specifically to find info about this. And it's like, great, the layout is not made for my brain.
Right.
That's cool.
Or if it's just like, it just is like odd.
Yeah.
Like,
so we love the UX of this website.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we also love
autism.
What is in it.
Yeah.
So I found a great article about AuDHD, which, like I said, is the combo of autism and ADHD. And that is what we are covering today. They also have a bunch of autism tests that are all compiled on there. And it's a really amazing resource if you want to take some of those tests yourself. And before I dive into this article that we're using today, I wanted to share a quick little bit about the autism tests on there, because our Australian friend Anya and I were messaging about autism, and we were kind of talking about like those autism assessments. And she was saying that she always scores really low on the autism assessments, and she sent me that resource for me to take the tests as well. And first of all, I realized that I have definitely tried to take a few of these autism tests that are on this website before in the past, but I've always quit and given up because the questions are just like frustratingly vague, which I feel like this is a sign of autism in itself, like needing every single little detail before making the best, most accurate decision. Like the question, would you rather go to a party or a library? It's like, what kind of question is that?
Right. What if there's a party at the library?
And what kind of party is it?
Right.
What's happening at the library? Do I need to go to the library? Like, who's at this party?
Right.
And I just feel like I need 10,000 more details before I can give an answer. And I also feel like the questions kind of like reveal their bias as you're taking them.
Right.
Like I know if I click on, I'd rather go to a library, they're like, autism.
Right.
You know? Which I just feel like is very reductive.
Also, like, when are you in the situation of like, there's a party and a library event, I have to go to both?
College.
Like, well,
you every single Friday night in college.
You know what?
Is a perfect example of that decision. And you always chose library.
I did.
Autism. You must be autistic.
I mean, yeah, but it was just because I had lots of exams.
That's what I'm saying. The question's too big.
Right? I'd rather be at a party in college, especially in college. Man, I was an animal. But
Yeah, like now, I don't know.
Now-
Once again, what kind of fucking party is it?
right,
Is it like a little gathering of my closest friends, or is it a house party?
right.
It's house party? No.
Are there going to be hors d'oeuvres?
What?
Is there going to be hors d'oeuvres?
Yeah, what's the food situation? What time is it at?
Right.
Because if it's after 8 p.m., probably not.
Probably not.
But anyways, this time, after Enya messaged me, I finally got myself to finish one of these tests. I didn't rage quit. I stuck with it.
I'm proud of you.
So I took the autism quotient. It has 50 questions.
Ooh,
I
that's a
scored a
lot.
40. Kristen,
Out of 50?
Yep.
And 50 is like the most autistic.
Well, yeah, there are 50 questions. I don't know how they score it, but I think
Like the
threshold
higher-
was like 20 or something.
Oh, so 20 plus.
20 or above, it's like, yeah, probably it's the TISM. So I got
Yeah.
a 40. Kristen, you got a 33, which
Yeah.
is crazy. And once again, these don't mean that you're more or less
What do you
autistic.
mean, which is crazy?
Because I remember we've tried to take these tests in the past, and
Yeah.
you got much higher than I did. Like, I remember specifically, we were on this website
Yeah.
taking other autism assessments, like last year,
Yeah.
and mine was like much lower,
Yeah.
and it was like maybe mild autism, which like we don't use those terms anymore, whereas yours was like higher than mine. And so this time, it's the other way around.
I think we
wonder
just need to take more tests. We'll just do an average.
Okay.
What's the mean?
Yeah. But I wonder if part of it is that like now that I'm embracing more of my autistic traits,
Oh.
I'm like allowing myself to be like, you know what? Yes, that is me. I am extremely rigid about rules. Just, I was so black and white about thinking about it where I'm like, well, not all the time, so no. And now I'm like, okay, I see that that's my
It
thinking
depends
process,
on the
you know?
rule, I think.
Yeah. And
'Cause-
so before I was like, well, it's not with all rules, so no.
Right. Like no talking in class. You were not hard on that rule.
Yeah. But then when
Because the rules they have to make sense to you.
yeah, I have to agree that this is a good rule, and then I will enforce it forever. But if it's
You're
a rule I
rigid
don't
about
agree with-
your own rules.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
how I was just saying on my episode with Christopher that I'll make up rules about like which sponge is used for which.
Yeah. I also want to comment on that episode.
Yeah.
That I still think that the salt and pepper should go in the cabinet.
Why? If you use it every day.
Just put it away. Don't put it down, put it away.
Well, you and Christopher need to have this argument.
I know.
Because with Ian, he'll just be like, okay, I'll just put it away. Or I'll just leave it out on the counter, you know?
It belongs in a museum. No, I know you don't know that quote. It belongs in the cabinet.
We don't have time for the discussion.
Okay.
Take your relationship problems somewhere else. So anyways, Kristen and I both scored. We knocked it out of the park. So yes to autism on these tests.
Woo woo!
But I was telling Enya that another reason why these tests are so frustrating is because I can tell which questions and which answers are like meant to sway me in which direction and how I'm going to be calculated based on how I answer each question. So it's really annoying and hard to like not have that influence my answers.
Right.
And
trying
she
to hack-
responded.
Okay.
What?
Go ahead.
She responded and said, "It's so funny to me that you approached the autism quotient like it was trying to trick you. Deep belly lols here, with you and not at you. It doesn't matter if you know what the questions are implying. Either it speaks to your life or it doesn't. It's a tool, not a puzzle. Ha ha ha, mate, I love that." I thought that was funny that she called me out on trying to solve this autistic test like it's a puzzle, which in itself is autistic.
You're trying to like hack it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like
I know what it's up
biohack.
to.
Yeah.
I see your games. I see the pattern.
Pattern recognition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of this is to say, it turns out that yes, I am in fact autistic. Kristen, you are also in fact autistic.
Yeah, I think we all knew that. I think we knew that.
Yes, we did.
And so-
And it turns out not everyone scores super high on those, because I think Enya got like an 11 or something.
Really?
But whenever I take these tests, I'm like, well, everyone will put this.
Yeah.
But no, they don't.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently, no, they don't, even if people can relate to us a bunch.
I also feel like if you're researching it enough to take all these autistic tests, there's a high likelihood.
Yes. Or you just are very ADHD and you're like, but is it autism? Back and forth, back and forth. And even if you might not think you're autistic right now and just ADHD, I don't know, give it a year. Because that was me a year ago where I'm like, no, definitely not. And now I'm like, yeah.
Probably,
yes,
yeah.
Definitely, yes. So who knows? You know, you might, I feel like the more you learn about autism, the more you can see your own traits. And until then, I don't know, no pressure. Go at your own speed, go at your own time, you know, discover yourself as much as you're comfortable with. So this was meant to be a quick little thing, and obviously it's not, but
It never is.
yeah. So yeah, not everyone scores super high on those or rage quits because of not enough specificity and detail to the questions. So go check those out. That's at, what is it? EmbraceAutism.com.
I thought
it'll be in the resources.
they like had the quotient test, but they also had like little examples of each question too.
Yeah.
Which was really helpful because we both were like craving more specificity or requiring more specificity. And so it was nice that they had, because there was a lot of questions that I would have said answered one way if they just gave me that one prompt, but because they had like the extra, like, here's an example. And then I was like, oh, now I know what they mean. And no, the opposite is true.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that makes it so difficult to take those tests, is because they're not written for the autistic brain, which is very, very rigid, very black and white, very all or nothing. So if you have a question that like describes something that maybe you don't relate to the description, you're like, oh, that's not me. But yeah, you give an example and you're like, oh yeah, I can see how that plays out in real life. That is me. Or, I just feel like they're just not written for the autistic brain to like interpret it correctly.
Right.
So there are a bunch of tests on there. They all have their pros and cons on the website, and it does a really good job of highlighting like what the pros and cons are. So take them with the discretion. It's not like a final diagnosis, but if you've been like doing a bunch of research and looking at your own traits, I feel like this can just be one more thing to like add to your self-assessment as like more evidence. Because we need all the evidence before we can come out and say we're autistic. We got to gather every single piece of evidence there is. And if you find yourself wanting to rage quit because the questions lack enough specificity and detail to give you the most accurate answer possible, just remember that autistic executive dysfunction looks like not being able to do something if you can't do it perfectly. So either just like answer the vague questions as best as you can, or take your quitting as a sign that you are most likely autistic. Oh, also, Kristen, I think that you and I should take a couple more of these together.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe we could do it as like a Patreon episode.
I love taking quizzes like this.
I do too.
Like, remember when BuzzFeed was a big thing?
Yes.
And you had all these I want to take these BuzzFeed.
And before that, Cosmo quizzes.
Oh.
I've always loved a personality quiz.
We absolutely need to get some old Cosmos
Yeah.
and take those quizzes.
Yeah, they'll be so misogynistic. It'll be so fun. So maybe we'll do both autism assessments and Cosmo quizzes as Patreon content.
Once that gets up and running.
Yeah.
It's in the works.
Yep.
Almost.
Yeah. And you can come like join along and listen to us, because once again, it might be helpful to like hear us break down the questions.
Yeah.
All right. So let's slam into this topic.
ADHD.
ADHD.
Woo woo.
And that's our song called ADHD.
Yep.
It's not very good.
I was really hoping I would come up with another verse, but
I was hoping you would too.
Not today.
You'll get it one day. It's very hot in here. Our brains are hot.
I'm sweating.
We added more sound padding to the pod lock.
We're in an incubator today.
It means that
hopefully the sound quality is better.
It fucking better be, because god damn it, it's hot in here.
It's really hot. I'm very warm. There's no AC.
Yeah, I know, because we can't have
we
AC
can't.
in here.
I mean, I know that there are hotter places, like Texas is going through a heat wave. It's like 115.
No, this is the hottest room that exists right now.
I feel like I'm in a womb.
Yeah.
We're womb mates.
Oh. All right, but I'm ready to get out of the womb with you because it's so hot. So let's get going.
Let's push.
All right.
Sorry. Such a... We wouldn't be pushing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about AuDHD.
Okay. So my article that I have, it's from Embrace Autism, and it's called Autistic and ADHD Traits by Deborah Bercovici, PhD. Bercovici. I'm just going to call her Dr. Deborah. I'm sorry, Dr. Deborah, if that is offensive. Your last name is cool, but
it is really cool.
I'm not going to be able to remember that.
We're not going to be able to move forward because your last name is so cool.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be able to get past that.
Yes. So
Bercovici.
An accommodation I'm giving myself is that I'm not going to say your last name because it'll be distracting. So you're Dr. Deborah. Thank you for this article, Dr. Deborah.
Not to be confused with brother and sister Deb from an earlier episode.
Oh yeah, Sister Deborah.
Sister Deborah.
I don't know what that is. We don't have time.
Yep.
All right. Dr. Deborah says Research shows that upwards of 50% of autistic people also have ADHD, although I will say that some studies indicate up to 70% of people have both.
Woo!
So the numbers are still out because this is not very researched. AuDHD especially does not have much research behind it.
Well, even the DSM-5 right now says that you can't have both. And we all know that that is not true.
Does it still say that, or was it changed for the 5th one? I know up until
2013.
Yeah. When did the DSM-5 come out? No, we don't have time.
We don't have time.
But up until 2013, you couldn't be diagnosed with both. So this new profile of AuDHD is relatively new, and there's a lot of research lacking behind it. So the best thing we can do is kind of scrounge the few articles we have together, and then also seek out the life experiences of AuDHDers, because for anything, that's going to be your best source of just learning about how this plays out day to day.
Right.
So for AuDHD individuals, this is Dr. Deborah. She says, for AuDHD individuals like myself, we love an author who can relate to what she's talking about. It can be confusing to parse out which of my traits can be attributed to ADHD versus autism. And that's because internally, it all combines to form one experience. However, clinically, the diagnostic criteria for each are distinct. So let's break it down. So I just want to give a quick little summary of ADHD criteria versus autism, because I feel like we haven't talked about the ADHD criteria in a long time.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to have that immediate back-to-back.
Yeah.
So according to the DSM, there are no overlapping traits between autism and ADHD because autism is diagnosed primarily based on social and communication differences and repetitive patterns of behavior, whereas ADHD is diagnosed based on attentional differences. So the summary of ADHD criteria, we know that there are two types of ADHD, inattentive and hyperactive. Here we focus solely on inattentive traits because autistic people with co-occurring ADHD predominantly display the inattentive type. So those traits are, for inattentive ADHD, makes careless mistakes or lacks attention to detail, difficulty sustaining attention, does not seem to listen when spoken to directly, fails to follow through on tasks and instructions. Sorry, this list feels so mean and personal. Direct attack on us. Exhibits poor organization, avoids or dislikes tasks requiring sustained mental effort. So true.
Yeah.
Loses things necessary for tasks and activities.
Yep.
Is easily distracted.
Oh, yeah.
And is forgetful in daily activities.
Yep.
So that's the ADHD criteria.
Nailed it.
Yep. Got all of them. 10 out of 10. All right. The summary of autism criteria. So autistic individuals must display social communication and interaction differences across multiple contexts. So differences in social emotional reciprocity, like reduced back and forth conversation compared to allistics, which means non-autistics. Allistics.
I disagree.
Well, you can't. First of all, we already talked about how we disagree with all of these in the first part of autism.
All right,
so we don't
I'm sorry.
Need to do that again. We've
Okay.
already talked about why these are not accurate and they're written from a neurotypical standpoint.
Right.
And how...
Because we can go back and forth all day.
Oh my
it's just going to be
God.
the right topic.
And it's got to be the right person.
Yeah.
I can't go back and forth with someone who's not giving me anything. but
Right.
it's someone who wants to...
It's like going on a date with someone who doesn't. You're like, "How was your day?" And they're like, "Good." And you're like, "What do you do for a living?" "I work
Bank. Yeah, you got to give me something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. If you want to hear our complaints about every single one of these autistic DSM diagnostic criteria, go back and listen to part 1 of autism.
Yep.
But we're just going to do a quick summary of them
Yep.
and just know in our hearts that we disagree with these and it's not specific enough. All right.
In our hearts.
In our hearts. We also have differences in nonverbal communication, which is reduced eye contact or body language compared to allistics.
That's
and
fair.
I just want to jump in here with a clarification because someone DM'd us and they were asking about ADHD struggles with eye contact versus autistic ones, because I think I mentioned in our part 1 that if you have a really hard time with eye contact, that's autism. In my brain, I was like, I'm saying exactly what I mean. But no, I wasn't. I feel like I wasn't specific enough because, so they both come with eye contact difficulties, but the reasons are different, which is often what we see in this autistic criteria. It's like maybe on the outside, ADHD and autism can look similar, but the traits are happening for different baseline reasons. So with ADHD, we have difficulty with eye contact because we're distractible. We're always looking around. We're taking in a bunch of info. It gets boring to just make eye contact with someone and pay
Right.
attention. Often it can be harder to pay attention when you're looking at someone, I find. So ADHD definitely comes with challenges of like keeping eye contact for those like inattentive, distractible reasons. Autism comes with difficulty with eye contact in the sense of like it feels bad to make eye contact.
Right.
It's not that we just like struggle to make it. Well, we do, but also it's that like we don't really want to.
Right.
Where for some, and once again, blanket across the board, this does not speak for every single autistic person and does not speak for every single ADHD person. When we say this, I know one AuDHDer actually who loves eye contact, but for a lot of autistic people,
who's that?
Billy. She loves it.
She just loves it?
Yeah. But I also think that some autistic people say that they like eye contact, but they don't realize that they're not really making it, is the other thing I've noticed, you know?
They just
Billy
want you to make it.
Yeah, or they, like, I always thought I was fine with eye contact until actually Billy at my preschool job was like, you're always looking around. You don't make eye contact that much. And then that was the first time as like a 30-year-old person, like, oh my God, I don't make eye contact. Like I can, but if I'm making eye contact during especially like a conversation that's more serious or someone I'm not super comfortable with, I am forcing myself to make eye contact the entire time.
And that's all you can think about is like, I must make eye contact.
Yes. And it's beyond just the ADHD distractibility. It's like, this feels bad in my brain. And actually, they've done studies that show that some autistic people, the fear center lights up in their brain when they make eye contact, where it feels like a physical threat to stare into someone's pupil. So, yeah, I hope that like clears it up a little bit, that, you know, challenges with eye contact don't just mean autism, but if you're like scared of eye contact or it freaks you out or you just like really feel
like a negative response.
Yeah, you're having some kind of negative response beyond just like, oh, I don't wanna. But if it's if your brain is like, no, fear, danger, look away, then that is more autism.
Got it.
Yeah. And then if you have AuDHD, you have both challenges where you're distractible and your brain doesn't like eye contact. So
there's just no eye contact ever.
Yeah, which is why
it's not happening.
Stare at the wall when I talk.
Yep.
And it's easier.
Yep. And I feel like, especially like if someone's giving me instructions, I got to look at the floor.
Yep.
And then I have to like repeat back to them.
Because when you're interpreting eye contact as like a threat, any eye contact you're making, you are masking, which means your nervous system is activated, which means you're like having to put all of your energy into just doing this thing that people expect of you. And so it's so much harder to expend more energy also trying to like process what's being said. So yeah, I also have to stare off into the distance if someone is like telling me something complex. Can't think about both.
One of my coworkers is leaving, so there's only 2 PAs. So there's a desk open, and the remaining PA was like, oh, we should move our desks so we sit right across from each other. That way we can look at each other.
No.
And I'm like, why the fuck would you want to do that? Absolutely not.
You're
my
crazy.
desk stares at a wall, so I get to stare at the wall, and that's what I like to stare at. I like to stare at my wall. I wouldn't be able to get any work done if you're going to sit me not only next to a window, but across the street from you or whatever. God. There's no way.
Yeah. My favorite time to have a conversation, driving in the car.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting next to each other.
That's a great time.
There's no expectation to make eye contact or look at each other. You're both just staring straight ahead. I love sitting next to someone and having a convo. Especially if you have something to watch.
Yeah.
You know?
You get a little entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the pressure's taken off of
No
you.
one should be making eye contact in the car, especially if you're the driver. You got eyes on the road, buddy.
And whenever they do it in a movie or a show, I'm like, watch the road!
Watch the road!
I'm always waiting for
what are you looking at?
Car crash. Yeah.
Yeah. Christopher doesn't know this, but every time we have to have like a serious conversation about like relationship stuff, he goes from making no eye contact to making all of the eye contact. It's like a switch. And now I'm like, am I supposed to uphold this eye contact? And I feel bad because I feel like if I don't, then he doesn't think I'm paying attention. So sometimes I look away. I go, I'm still listening, but I'm like, I just have to turn away because I can't process because the eye contact is too much.
Yep.
It's too intense.
And I think this is one of those things where you really just have to like explain to your partner what's going on, because people always expect us to make eye contact, and neurodivergent people do as well. You know, like there's an example. Christopher is also autistic, and normally doesn't make great eye contact.
No.
But then in certain
He, like,
emotional states, he wants to like do it as a way to connect, probably.
Probably.
But
who
for
knows
you,
what's going on in there?
There's no way to know.
There's
seriously.
no way to know.
Well, science will never uncover what's going on in Christopher's brain. But that's one of those things where like you can't really force yourself to do it if you're having this fear response. And if you are forcing yourself, you're forcing yourself to mask. And that's not fair to us to like put ourselves through that just because other people want to have some sign that you're listening. It's like, I'm listening. Just trust me that I am listening. Do I need to give you like
and
visual
that's why I say
confirmation?
I'm still listening.
Yeah. So I think just explaining like, hey, I have a really hard time both like processing what's being said and keeping eye contact. So like it's one or the other.
Yeah,
I can
pick one.
Yeah. I can make great eye contact. And nothing's going in my brain.
That's it. That's all I'm doing.
Yep.
There's nothing else going on up there.
Yeah. It's solely focused on
it's
eye
just
contact.
only eye contact.
Yeah. So that's an important little accommodation to give yourself. You know, don't force. And same with like working with autistic kids in school. I never, ever worked on eye contact because apparently I don't like it, which is part of it. But I always felt like that's so inappropriate to force someone to make eye contact.
Right.
Now I know why. It's because I don't want to be forced to make it. But like really, seriously, don't ever force a kid to make eye contact. If you need a sign that they're listening.
Or force a hug.
Oh, yeah. Never.
Kids will hug when they want to hug.
Yeah, ew, don't force a kid to touch your body.
Kids are sticky. That's gross. Don't let them hug you. And then don't force them to hug
it's your issues. You don't want kids hugging you.
I would prefer not to, but my nephews love a good hug.
Big sticky hug.
A big sticky hug. They're less sticky now that they're older.
Yeah.
But when they were like toddlers, you're just like, oh
great.
No. I'm so glad that you're happy.
Yep. Glad you're enjoying this.
Yep.
All right. And the last autistic trait that we're summarizing, apparently, for this autistic criteria is differences in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships, like difficulty adjusting to different social contexts, which, like, as wrong as that sentence is, I will say that I do have difficulty adjusting to different social contexts if it's like an unexpected one.
Yeah.
All right. So the diagnostic criteria for autism also include the presence of distinct patterns of behavior, interests, and activities. And this accounts for our special interests, stimming behavior, sensory sensitivities, etc. And as you can see, none of the criteria for ADHD refer to social or communication differences, and none of the criteria for autism refers to attention.
I see.
Although ADHD does come with its own struggles with social and communication differences, but those aren't like a core feature of the disability.
Right.
Dr. Deborah goes on to say, understanding the DSM criteria might make it easier for some of us to distinguish our ADHD and autism traits based on social interactions versus attentional characteristics. However, for me, this has never felt complete. If the criteria for diagnoses appear to be clearly defined without any overlap, why do so many of us neurodivergents struggle to classify our traits? She says, my own personal light bulb moment was realizing that the diagnostic criteria classify outward observable traits, but do not reflect our internal experiences. That's such a good way to put it. And that's exactly it. It's written from like outside observable things.
Yeah.
We're like, oh,
like you're being studied.
Yes. Yeah. So of course, as someone who's experiencing the autism from inside, none of that is really going to speak to my struggles because like, well, I can socialize sometimes. Sometimes I do fine with that. It depends on the context. So it's really hard to kind of label that from the outside when the internal experience feels so different. So she says, what can look like one thing on the outside does not fully represent the accompanying vast and varied experiences that go on inside our bodies and minds. Since the DSM has distinguished autism from ADHD based on external presentation of traits, the holistic way in which we make sense of and navigate the world does not get factored into the diagnostic criteria, often making it difficult for us to see ourselves fully represented. There are also other unique ADHD traits that aren't mentioned in the DSM, like divergent thinking and altered time perception, but we've talked about those enough on here, and there's no time.
There's no time.
Yeah. So then when it comes to co-occurring autism and ADHD or AuDHD, like I said, there's not a ton of articles and research specifically into this like profile of both because it's kind of like a newer thing. Dr. Deborah says that listening to members of the AuDHD community can provide a lot of insight about our experiences, which official research has yet to capture.
Yeah.
So listen to us. This is our experience.
Right. Also, TikTok is a great source.
Yes. Yeah. Just hearing those.
Because it's also like, I don't know. I love TikTok so much. I know I'm addicted to it, but
Yes,
like I think you
I am
just
too.
see people.
You learn so much.
You learn so much, and you see people like in their own homes, in their own clothes. There's no like facade of like big Hollywood,
Yeah.
You like really
not polished.
see like every perspective, including like the neurodivergent, the ADHD, all these like smaller groups of people that wouldn't necessarily have a voice.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of that, I just want to throw in here that like when we're talking about autism in these last few episodes, we're really just talking about like our experience with autism. There is a whole range of autistic people, some being non-speaking, which is how we say, it used to be called nonverbal, but they have words. It's just not in like speaking form, like whether they're using like an AAC communication device or something like that. There are autistic people who are non-speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also important to like listen to their stories. I actually have a good resource for that I will put in the resources.
Yes.
But just want to reiterate that once again, we are not speaking for the autistic community as a whole. And there are people who are much more disabled by their autism.
All right. There's also the savant group, which is like, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh yeah, to have like
a special
super
skill.
special skill. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have that one. Didn't get that type.
No, I just got all like the like hypersensitivity.
Yeah, I just have rigid rules about fucking sponges.
Yeah.
Great. So Dr. Deborah goes on to say, she reiterates that the DSM was published in 2013, and so you can't be diagnosed with both up until then.
That's what I was referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So as a result, research shows that it is not uncommon for late diagnosed autistics to have been misdiagnosed with ADHD as a kid or to have been overlooked completely due to their ADHD diagnosis overshadowing their autistic traits.
Interesting.
And even if you weren't diagnosed as a kid, like for me, I feel like my ADHD really overshadowed my autism, where yes, I was rigid, but my ADHD didn't allow for me to like follow through on anything that when it came to that rigidity. So it's like I would make up rules or I would have a way that I wanted to do things that was very specific, but like my ADHD wouldn't follow through on it. So from the outside, it didn't look like I was super rigid. And then I think once I started taking my ADHD meds, those autistic traits did come out a little bit more because I was able to then follow through on structure and organization a bit more. But
I wonder,
it wasn't cured.
Question to our listeners who I wonder if, especially the late diagnosers, once you started taking medication, late diagnosers like suspected or diagnosed ASD as well, the AuDHDers, did you also find that these autistic traits would present more once you started taking medication?
Yeah. Let us know your experiences.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice to know.
Yeah.
If you feel like sharing.
Yeah, I would like to hear that.
Yep.
So here are Dr. Deborah's thoughts on like what AuDHD looks like in combination. So she says heightened experiences, ooh, not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
That's like with all of these things. An individual with autism plus ADHD often experiences a heightening or an increase in the intensity of certain traits. For example, one study showed that autistic individuals with ADHD demonstrated higher attention to detail compared to individuals with either ADHD or autism alone, which is crazy. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
You would think like autism alone would be the most attentive to detail because you can be, but I feel like with ADHD, you're probably taking in more info than with just one or the other alone. So because we have higher attention to detail, this may also lead to heightened sensory sensitivities. Since many autistics are bottom-up processors, which, side note, we're definitely going to cover in a future episode because it's like so important for understanding how autistic processing works.
Yeah.
Where like you're taking in all the details before you can see the big picture.
Yes.
So we already take note of every little detail and sensory aspect of our environment, add on the attentional differences of ADHD, and now we may be completely unable to ignore anything that is going on. Fun. This can make the unpleasant sensory stimuli around us even louder and more disruptive. So that's like her one little blurb about kind of what it looks like in combination. And then she talks a lot about contradictions in AuDHD. And I was going to save this part for the next autism episode because I really wanted to do an episode called ADHD versus ASD, the war inside me, because that's how it feels when you have both. It's like two totally opposing desires. But I'm finding that it's like pretty much impossible to truly talk about what the profile of AuDHD looks like specifically without mentioning how the autism and ADHD contradict each other. Because that's kind of like the whole thing, is that one side wants this, the other side's like, no.
We can call this episode 80, The War Inside Me.
Yeah, I just might. So
'Cause
maybe we just said the title.
How we felt and feel currently.
Yes.
Yeah.
It truly does feel like two totally different personalities.
Like this article, the little points, the contradictions that we're about to talk about, I felt so seen and heard. I'm like, yes, this is it.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to read this little blurb and then you can kind of go through the contradictions?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to get you in the mix.
Yeah. Let me read some. Let me struggle to read something real quick.
Okay. Let me just finish. I'll finish this little blurb.
I'll let you finish.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to share this final bit from the article, and then I'm going to give some real-life examples of how it plays out from various AuDHD creators I follow.
Ooh.
All right, so Dr. Deborah from her original article says, while some autistic and ADHD traits can work in tandem to heighten experiences, they can also oppose each other and create contradictions. Studies report that those with co-occurring autism and ADHD have poorer outcomes than either autism or ADHD alone.
God damn it.
That's fun.
Great.
As a scientist, my theory is that these contradictions are part of what makes it difficult to manage day-to-day life. And yes, Dr. Deborah, you're right on the money with that one. All right, so Kristen, why don't you take us through some of those contradictions that Dr. Deborah mentioned in her article?
It's so much. Okay. Number one, you thrive when there's a set routine, an autistic trait, but you struggle to plan and follow a schedule, an ADHD trait, which is my fucking life. I would love to be on a routine and a schedule and like set my alarm and get up at, alarm number 1 and not alarm number 5 and like have could you imagine the peace of doing the same thing every day?
I can imagine. I would love it.
It would be nice.
Yeah. I love to make a routine. I love to like create a schedule. I love to make a made up routine that I know I'm never going to follow.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
But then at the same time, if you're doing the same thing every day, like, it's so boring.
Yeah. My ADHD
and I want
bored.
to do something different.
Yep. So it's like I need structure, but I need to have some flexibility within that structure.
Right.
But I need someone to make me follow the structure.
Right.
But also don't tell me what to do. God.
It's so frustrating.
Why is life so much harder?
You get very distressed when your friend shows up late to your meeting, an autistic trait, but you yourself struggle to arrive at events on time, ADHD trait.
Yep.
This is me too. I will be
that is so you.
Wildly upset for no reason, and then I cannot get on time. Like,
you were so mad at me for showing up an hour and a half late to your barbecue, and then the next time you came over, you showed up an hour and a half late.
Yep.
And I was like, it's fine. But you were like, so distraught.
I was like, how dare they?
Even though I do the exact same thing.
And I almost like see myself from like an outsider, like being like, you're being ridiculous right now.
You can't have it both ways.
You can't have these expectations. You can't have both. And there's no stopping me. I'm just like, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah.
For no reason.
And you've always been so distressed about time. And I feel like it's only in the last few years where that ADHD side of you has come out, where you've become much later to things.
Oh my God.
It used to be annoyingly early.
So, and I know when I'm more stressed, I'll be more stressed about time.
Yeah.
Like it's been busy. So lately I've been very like even to get here on time with because Christopher is here for the sound editing and everything. And I'm like, so trying to explain to him as he's having his meltdown trying to crochet. I'm like, if we get up by this time, we can get breakfast, we can pack the car, we'll leave by this time, we'll have enough time to get coffee on the way down. And I'm like trying to convey, which really I just mean if I want to be here by a certain time, I got to leave an hour early plus 15-ish minutes to get a coffee. Yep. That's all I need to do.
Yeah.
But it's just I don't know. I have such an issue with time.
I do too.
It
flies by before I realize. And it's also hard when you are inconsistent like that. Leaving the house. Oh my God, I am always the one that's
the worst.
5 more minutes. And Ian's like, let's go. But then once in a while when it's something like that where I'm really stressed about getting there on time, I am so rigid about it.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to him because I'm never rigid about time.
Right.
Unless it's like, but this time I really care.
This
so
time,
you better be in the car.
gotta be on time. Yeah, I know. I wish like I understand that it is unreasonable for me to set the same expectations I set for myself. It's unreasonable for myself.
Yes. That's the thing about you. You hold other people to high expectations, but I know it's because you're also holding yourself to those same rigid expectations.
And I want people to not care about the things that I don't care about, but care about the things I care about.
Same.
And you're just like, no one can keep up with this.
Yeah.
And I know, I look at myself and I'm like, this isn't correct. Like, no one's going to follow this weird thing that I like suddenly feel like getting on time this one day to recording is going to be really important.
Yep.
We were late today anyway.
I didn't know what time you're supposed to arrive.
Yeah,
so
I never tell you because I know I'm always going to be late.
I don't care if you're late. All I care about is you say, okay, I'm on my way. And that means I know I have an hour to do my stuff.
Yep.
So I don't give a shit when you leave. Just tell me you're leaving.
Yep.
Don't lie to me and say I'm leaving now, but you're actually around the corner.
Yeah.
That would be distressing. Other than that,
so
you could show up whenever.
You find sorry, let me start over. That was beautiful. You find engaging in a special interest to be soothing, an autistic trait, but you also need to jump between multiple special interests to keep you engaged. ADHD. Yep. This is hobby collectors in a nutshell.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Here's my new thing.
Yeah, I feel like I have more special interests than other autistic people, but I can see if you're just autistic and not ADHD, that it's like, all right, these are my like 2 or 3 special interests.
Right.
And I'm sure you can have more if you don't have ADHD, just autism. But I think when you throw the combo in there,
you gotta have
like
a mix up. And then you have your occasional hedgehog terrarium day where
it's just a little oopsie.
Whoops the doodles.
Yeah, that you don't follow through on.
Yeah. You are meticulous with your plans, an autistic trait, but sometimes overwhelm yourself by making an impulsive decision, ADHD.
God.
I know.
I do that to myself all the time. I'm like, why did I do that?
Fuck.
Now I have no plan.
Right? I know. It's so, I just have a hard time like changing plans or canceling plans.
Yes. Also, I'm thinking of you, where you spent so long, I think it was mattresses or cars. I think it was mattresses, where you spent forever researching the perfect mattress. You made a fucking Excel spreadsheet, and then there was a sale on mattresses. So you're like, I just bought this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So your autism spent so long planning.
I made a whole spreadsheet.
You had to find the exact
I did all
mattress.
the research, and I'm not very happy with my mattress. It's
because you made an impulse decision.
I know. I should have. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Should have stuck with the research.
I know. At least I did that with my car. I stuck with the research.
Yep. But that is the perfect example of how it feels to have the combo.
It's
like, come on, ADHD.
Come on.
I was trying to plan.
Stick with the plan.
But there's a sale.
There's a sale.
This is the right mattress.
15% off.
Based on nothing.
Yeah. Okay, so next one. You are meticulous.
No,
wait. No. Okay, last one. When you info dump, you have a habit of speaking too fast, an ADHD trait, but when someone asks you an unrelated question, your responses may be delayed or you may be unable to speak, an autistic trait.
Yep.
Which
I relate to that.
I don't know. I feel like
I relate to that so hard. I could give you my whole little spiel about ADHD or about autism, but then if you ask me a question I wasn't expecting, I'm like, I
think it just like has like, we have just like a processing delay. An audio, is it the thing that we talked about before in earlier episodes?
An auditory processing disorder?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a combo. I think my brain takes, it has a little delay, like processing what's being said to me. But I agree that my autism comes with not being able to answer things like off the top of my head if I wasn't expecting it. Unexpected change.
Unexpected. Well, right?
It's like a
there it
curveball.
is.
That question isn't
so
a part
if you're going
of my...
on and on and on about your hedgehog terrarium and someone goes, did you see that we're having a rainstorm tomorrow?
Well, even if they ask me, all right, so let's use ADHD as the example.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to someone about ADHD and then they ask me
a totally unrelated question.
Yeah, or a question that's not normally asked when I have this little script of what ADHD is. Even if I like knew the answer at some point or I know the knowledge is in my brain, my mind just goes completely blank. It's like when someone asks you, like, tell me about yourself. And you're like,
it's a dumb question. Where do I even fucking begin?
My mind is trying to like compile every single piece of
interviews.
information.
Do I start at my birth? It was a Tuesday, I think.
Was it?
Might be. I'll have to ask my mom.
Yeah, should find out.
She knows these things.
But yeah, I feel like that delay, you're right. I think the auditory processing disorder is part of it, but part of it is also an unexpected question where it's a transition. Even if I do have the info in there, it's like, whoa, out of nowhere, my brain needs like multiple minutes to catch up.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
And I also kind of related to this. I just saw someone make a comment about this on TikTok, and I had like such a mind blow moment. They're talking about how their like conversational skills, they always thought that they interrupted just because of their ADHD, that it causes them to just, how you want to just blurt things when it pops into your brain, ADHD. But also, they're saying that their autism causes them to misjudge when it's your turn to speak in a conversation. So it's not just the impulsivity of ADHD, like blurting things. Sense. It's also like, I'm not able to judge when you want me to talk. Like, are you done talking? Is it my turn? And that's why we both have trouble on the phone. Because I feel like we don't have those extra visual cues of like, oh, you're done, it's my turn. And I don't want to leave. I hate silence, as you can tell by me always talking.
I can't leave any silence
So I'm so anxious about an awkward silence on the phone that I feel like I interrupt too quickly, because it's like, I'd rather interrupt too quickly than have it be an awkward silence.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was just like a fun little tidbit of like, it's the AuDHD that makes me extra socially inappropriate. All right,
my goodness.
We're cruising pretty fast through this.
Yeah, we're cruising through.
I got this last little bit where I just have a little TikTok input from some creators.
Yeah.
Because I like those real world experiences.
Yes.
So Jamie, our friend Jamie, who makes those amazing mugs, I saw that she asked in the Facebook group for any good AuDHD resources, and no one responded.
She was asking for peer-reviewed journals, and I was like, girl, there are none.
My friend, there are none, yeah.
There are no peer-reviewed journals on this.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. So for now, I would say like seek out the word of other AuDHDers.
The word of the Lord.
No. Yes, find God. And then go listen to some AuDHDers, not just like any AuDHDer, but people who are able to like analyze their experiences and are kind of describing what it feels like to be AuDHD. You can also check out this creator, Megan Griffith, who has a compiled list of the few AuDHD resources that there are. Her TikTok is Meg Moxie. And she has like a link tree, and in there she has a ton of free resources that are awesome that you can sign up for. She even has a Neurospicy Club, which is it's for neurodivergent connection, community, and education. So you can join that, which would be cool.
That is cool. Are we part of that?
No, but I just found that when I was researching.
I feel like we should be.
Yeah, maybe I'll join.
Let's join the club.
And that's for, I think all neurospicy people. You don't have to just be AuDHD. And so her account, she was a big part of like how I came to realize that I am autistic, and her TikToks really helped me suss out the differences between ADHD and autism. She talks a lot about how they may look similar from the outside, but at their core, the root causes are different. So you can even sign up for her to send you some scientific studies on autism versus ADHD and AuDHD, which is what I did for this episode.
Oh.
And here is the point in our episode where I want to make a little note about sensory needs in ADHD, because Megan shares a study talking about it, which will be in the resources. But the study basically finds that atypical sensory profiles, which remember, this can be either hyper or hyposensitivity to input. Mm-hmm. These atypical sensory profiles are present in ADHDers regardless of autistic comorbidity. Although once again, it's hard to kind of suss out because there's so much overlap there's so many undiagnosed AuDHDers out there. I think I said in our part 1 of autism that if you have really strong sensory needs, that's like exclusive to autism. So I think what's really happening is it's not that ADHD doesn't have sensory hyper or hyposensitivity. So I shouldn't have said that like it's just autism if you have sensory needs. But I think because the autism causes you to have an even lower threshold for overstimulation than just ADHD alone, because autism comes with a very sensitive and easily dysregulated nervous system, that sensory overwhelm can become more overwhelming more quickly. So essentially with autism, your threshold for overstimulation is lower. So ADHD does come with sensory sensitivities, but with autism, it's like a double whammy because that threshold of how much you can tolerate is lower. So that is why, you know, Ian is really bothered by this loud squeaking noise, whereas I am like in the corner covering my ears, like physically in pain from it. We're both sensitive to it, but it's bothering me much more because I'm much more easily dysregulated.
Oh.
So that's
last night, my nail scratched a credit card and made a weird sound. And not only did I cry, but I thought I was going to throw up. But I didn't want to get off the couch because, you know, once you're in the wet, you want to stay in the wet.
Yeah.
And I was really like snuggled in. But I was just like,
I hate that. And whenever you think about it, it like hurts your teeth.
It hurts my soul a little bit.
Yeah, I hate that.
It was just this tiniest little boop, and you're like,
Yeah, I hate when you touch a bad texture. I often have to wash my hands. Like, rid me of this sensory experience.
Out, damn spot.
Yes, thank you for Shakespeare.
You're welcome.
I know my Shakespeare.
Right. I don't. I just know that one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And Et tu, Brute.
There's another one.
There you go.
So this would take us into like sensory processing disorder, which we don't have time to get into today.
We don't have time.
But some researchers and doctors claim that sensory processing disorder is a whole separate disorder, while others say that it's a trait of autism and ADHD. So we will probably do like a whole episode on sensory processing in the future to make sure we get it right. But I just kind of wanted to add that in there because once again, I just like say these things as if everyone knows the specificity in which I am thinking. But yeah, if you have sensory needs, it doesn't mean that you're automatically autistic. You can have sensory needs when you are just ADHD, but with autism, it's going to be more intense and it's going to be more dysregulating. All right. And this last little bit. I also follow this amazing creator, Morgan Foley. She's on TikTok as Morgan Foley. She's AuDHD and she makes incredible, very, very relatable AuDHD content. Go check her out and follow her. She has really helped me understand like so many of my experiences. She has this great video about what executive functioning looks like when you have AuDHD. And I thought this was just such a good explanation of like that war inside of me that's going on. So she says, the autistic part of your brain is very detail-oriented and it sees all the details and it's absorbing lots of information all at once. And like, sorry to immediately interrupt myself, but I found a 2014 study on the amount of information the autistic brain takes in. And it says, new research from Case Western Reserve University and University of Toronto neuroscientists find that the brain of autistic children generate more information at rest, a 42% increase on average. The study offers a
42%?
Yeah, we're taking in so much more info. And that's one of those facts that like, it might sound like a brag from the outside, but also it's not necessarily a good thing. It's just more info to be distracted by or bombarded
piling on
with.
more garbage.
Yeah.
I don't need that much info.
Yeah. So I feel like it kind of sounds like a brag when we're like, my brain takes in 42% more
like
information. But it's also like, womp womp.
I got to go sift through all this stuff. We're never going to get through it.
Exactly. Yeah. It can be both like a strength and a hindrance. So the study offers a scientific explanation for the most typical characteristic of autism, a withdrawal into one's inner world. And you'll hear people describe autistic people. Ian actually said that about me once. He's like, it's like you're in your own little world. And that was really kind of the day I started being like, am I autistic? Am I? Because I do very much live in my own world, which makes sense that we have like so much
I feel like I live in your world too.
Aw, I do too. But you're also very much in your own world.
Yeah.
There's times where it's like, Earth to Kristen. Come in, Kristen.
Earth to Mikas.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that little bit about how we are truly taking in so much information and our brains don't really know what to do with it.
Yep.
So Morgan says, so the autistic part of your brain is taking in all this info all at once, but then the ADHD part of your brain has a really hard time processing and categorizing all that info that the autism is bringing in. And like we've talked about with executive dysfunction in ADHD, it's those categorizing, prioritizing skills, not knowing like where to start, how to start, when to start, which order to do things in. So it's like your autism is like, here's all this information. And your ADHD is like, I have no idea how to categorize this.
Let's get like random thoughts here and there.
Yeah. And it's like, better put this in perfect order. So then
You're
when
right.
this happens, it's just sensory overload and overstimulation and anxiety because the autism and the ADHD are contradicting one another. You are aware of the task and you are aware of what to do, but you are so aware of it that it stresses you out. And with the ADHD and not being able to prioritize and categorize what is important, you stress yourself out and there's too much sensory stuff going on. And that's how executive dysfunction can show up sometimes in people with autism and ADHD. So, yeah, I thought that was a good way to kind of break down exactly what that executive dysfunction looks like in AuDHD. And I so relate to that I feel like I'm too aware of what I'm not able to do. And it's a bad thing where, ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Yeah. And also, it's just like, how overwhelming is that when you have all these things going on and you just have to check out because there's just no way.
Yeah. And I feel like you're right. It explains why we tend to like disassociate more because it's like I overwhelm myself all the time. I'll take on way too much because my ADHD is like more and more and more. And then my autism like can't handle it.
Right.
And vice versa, So yeah, I thought those were some good examples of kind of like how that contradiction looks. We're going to obviously talk about this in future episodes. This creator on Instagram under the account ADHD Coach Sheila, she has some awesome Venn diagrams on Instagram that I'll save for the next episode, but they do a good job of showing kind of what the ADHD trait is and what the autistic one is, and then kind of how that comes together for a perfect hellscape. So I just feel like hearing that contradiction and how they combine is really helpful. Hopefully you guys find it helpful. It's helpful for me, at least, to recognize that part is the ADHD and then this part is the autism, and I can see how they mesh together. So we'll talk about those in the future. We also in the future want to do an episode on autism versus allism. Allistic just means not autistic. So you can have ADHD and be allistic. So neurotypical means that your brain is just not necessarily normal, but typical to how people expect your brain to be. Allistic means that you are not autistic, and then autistic means that you're autistic. I was like, I don't know how to summarize that third one. So yeah, I feel like those differences are very pronounced, just like how the differences between like neurotypical and neurodivergent are very pronounced. Also, the differences between allistics and autistics are very pronounced. Where Ian and our ADHD can be very similar, but then I have this whole other component of autism that makes me very different from him.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's really important to understand those differences, especially when it comes to like communication. Apparently, allistics have all these rules and things that we're just totally missing. So we'll definitely talk about that in a future episode.
Yes.
Yes.
Ask a neurotypical.
Yes.
You still need to do that.
And also, well, I know. We've talked about how it's hard to do Ask a Neurotypical because, like...
I don't think we know any.
I know. It's hard to
I think I know one.
I feel like whenever I think someone is neurotypical, it turns out that they're autistic. And they're so good with, like, organization because they're so rigid about it. So it's like, damn it. Thought I had one. But I think...
If you're neurotypical, and you know for sure you're neurotypical...
Yes.
Reach out to us.
Or you have a neurotypical, like, partner or friend.
Right.
Where you're like, they are so neurotypical.
Reach out to us at weirdswithfeather@gmail.com because the more people I meet, the more people I'm like, you're one of us.
Yes. I know it's hard because you really only interact with people who are like us more often than not, you know?
Right.
Because that's what we're drawn to.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like Ryan, Haley's husband, is a pure neurotypical. I feel like he's our best bet.
I feel like I know for sure I have more neurodivergent coworkers than neurotypical
Well, yeah, you're in surgery. I feel like that's just like a breeding ground for autism.
It really is. It
Plus
really
ADHD
is.
Because it's like exciting and dynamic.
Right. Well, you go down to the ED and that's all ADHDers because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And it's just like patient, thing.
Yeah, and I feel like people who are like specialists also, I feel like you get a lot of autism, especially if it's like a very, very niche thing.
Yeah. And, I would love to talk. I could talk for days, like interviewing people. I would love to interview neurospices in the medical community.
Yeah.
And just chat about that and struggles and strengths and stuff like
I think
that.
it'll be interesting. Maybe as a Patreon side gig.
Yeah, a little side quest.
Side quest. All right.
No, that's patented.
Side stories.
No.
Side stories.
No.
Yes. No, that's not ours.
That's not ours. That's your other special interest last pod,
You know it.
we will come up with a different creative title.
Side stories.
No.
No. Also, in future episodes, we want to cover autistic meltdowns and shutdowns. Man, that's going to be its own episode.
It's going to throw me into a meltdown trying to talk about that.
Yeah, your yard sale meltdown.
My yard sale
about me closing the window and having a meltdown the other day. Not being able to close the window and having a meltdown. Yeah. We also want to talk about social skills, sensory processing, whether my nonverbal learning disability is really just autism all along, and much more. So
stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll see. So if you have any topics related to autism, AuDHD, or like anything else, you can send us your suggestions at weirdsofafeather@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram at weirdsofafeather.
You can also join our Facebook group. There are a lot of fun convos going on there. You can support the podcast by buying us a coffee at ko-fi.com/weirdsofafeather.
I just want to point out that was written down. She didn't get that off.
Damn it, Grace.
Sorry to ruin it.
Ruin my sunshine.
No, she got it off the top of her head. Look at that.
Yeah. No, it was written out like a script for me personally.
Yeah.
And I just want to say I'm proud of me for reading that. Go me.
I'm impressed.
I'm reading real good sometimes.
You read good.
I read good occasionally.
Yeah.
Sometimes no.
Sometimes no.
Yeah, so now we're up and running with the sound editor, and that's basically where all your donations are going for. Is like we've got foam in our incubator pod loft now.
It's hot and sweaty. Things are happening.
Man, it is boiling.
Yeah, we gotta get out of here.
Toasty. But yeah, we've got a sound editor. We're up and running with that, and all the donations go back into the podcast. It's not a profitable organization, but
no.
I wouldn't even call it an organization because it's not organized. But
it's just us.
It's just us. But everything goes back into the podcast. So to keep it going, obviously pay your bills first, pay your groceries, get all yourself together, and then if you happen to have enough money for a coffee, that's where you can spend it. Eventually, the goal is to be able to give you bonus content either through Patreon or some sort of I forget. Some sort of something. I was going to say OnlyFans. Probably not OnlyFans.
No, we're not doing OnlyFans. Please don't look for us there.
Yeah, don't look for us there.
I better not be on there.
But for those of you who have donated, thank you. It really means a lot. We both really love doing this, and we want to continue to do it. And we will, because
we have to. This is our life now.
This is our life now.
Just kidding. We love it.
I really do love it. I do look forward to our days.
Because otherwise, I'm just like bombarding random people with my facts about autism. So
it's got to go somewhere.
Got to channel it
because sometimes even I feel bombarded from you. We do this together, and you're just like, I read an article about this, and I'm like, oh my god.
Well, she shut the fuck up about autism.
I appreciate it so much, and because I know you're like head researcher.
Oh, I annoy myself, so don't worry.
But yeah, it's got to go somewhere, so it goes here.
Yep, it's going to you.
And that being said, are you ready for the bod?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want your bod.
Nice bod.
Today's bird, everybody can recognize. It's the robin. Actually, I have no idea what a robin sound makes.
And also, I don't know if everyone has robins in their
area. Like they're pretty universal. I guess in North America.
No, they're not.
Should we do a seagull?
Sure.
Let's do a seagull.
Let's do a fucking seagull. I thought you were going to do a robin.
Well, we're doing seagulls now.
All right, scratch that. No robin. We're doing a seagull.
We're doing a seagull. The world's first rat on wings. Seagulls are known for stealing sandwiches out of my nephew's hands while he's eating it and making him cry. Seagulls are known for picking through people's trash at the beach.
Seagulls are known for knocking someone's French fries strategically out of their hand and then have all their friends come and eat them. I watched that happen. I also was attacked by a seagull on a beach for my sandwich.
Where are you?
It came out of nowhere. Bashed my sandwich out of my hand. Little dick.
All right, you ready?
Sure.
Uncanny,
right?
We can't even get the easy birds right.
I know, God.
I'm about to make some friends with some seagulls.
We just have to practice is the problem. We don't practice at all.
We gotta go to the beach.
We don't do anything with our seals, although I practice by myself in my home just by my echolalia. But that's always like a morning dove. Wow, I feel like emotions.
Oh man, we just need some waves in the background. Ooh, ooh, ooh. That's a seal.
Oh, I hear it.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a whole beach scene.
Yeah. Let us take you there.
Hot dogs for sale.
All right.
Specifically Maine.
It's so goddamn hot. Let's get out of here.